Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to Neil deGrasse Tyson on knowledge versus thinking. This is a request. If you have a request, please leave it. I know I said it really fast, but please leave the title, the YouTube channel, and the link. That way I can search for it, because if you leave the link, YouTube might put it in for the held for review and I won't be able to see it. I mean, I can see it, but I just have too many comments to attend to in life, and I can't just go to the held for review comments. But anyways, so knowledge versus thinking. I honestly never thought about this until this was requested. It's like, okay, what's the difference between knowledge and thinking? Well, knowledge, in my opinion, is known facts, I guess. Now, I was gonna say things that you've obtained through the world, but it's not a. I don't know how else to describe knowledge. Knowledge is everywhere. You stub your toe, you've obtained knowledge. Trust me on that one. Anyone who has stubbed their toe has obtained knowledge. Very much so. And thinking is more along the lines of knowledge that's not obtained yet. You would have to think about it. I'm just repeating the words. But in a sense, it's knowledge that hasn't quite formulated into a hard fact yet. Well, knowledge could be false or true if you're thinking about it, but true knowledge is true. I am probably doing a terrible job explaining this, but basically, hopefully knowledge that you've obtained, you've had to think about. If you haven't thought about a knowledge, your knowledge might not be that great. Again, stubbing your toe is knowledge. Hopefully you understand what I mean by that, so let's go ahead and get started.
I just want to highlight a few things. I'm worried really about how much the fuzzy thinking is going on in the world. Fuzzy thinking, people just not thinking straight. And I try to think hard about what was behind it. And I reflect on a time with my sister. My sister's younger than I am. I'm 4 years older. So I'm like a whole school ahead of her, right? So I'm graduating high school, she's entering high school. I'm graduating college, she's entering college. And so one time, I said, so Lynn, where do you want to go have lunch today? Because I had some cash and and she said, well, what are my choices? And it was odd because I didn't realize until that moment that she was not yet capable of simply coming up with a fresh idea. Why?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm just guessing here. Maybe she understands that you have a limited amount of cash, and she doesn't want to say, "Oh, let's go to a 5-star restaurant or a Michelin star restaurant." It's like, So are we talking about like McDonald's, fast food, or are we talking about like a sit-down restaurant, like I don't know, if Olive Garden, I believe, is one, or some fancy place, which I honestly couldn't tell you anyone because I don't think I've ever been to one. No, never been to one.
Because she'd spent her whole life taking multiple choice tests.
I pause it because that's kind of harsh. I mean, it is kind of bad, is it? I mean, that is kind of the schooling around here. It's there are some fill in the blanks, but nonetheless, it's just memory. Multiple choice, memory. There are not very many questions that make you think about your answers to formulate your own answer on a question. There is no necessarily right answer, but it's how you formulate the answer. I don't think there's very many questions. I don't think there's any at all, actually. It's mostly multiple choice, fill in the blank. Multiple choice just meaning that you look at your choices, and if you remember correctly, you can pick the right one. If nothing else, you can guess. And the fill in the blank is just memorizing. Again, like multiple choice, if you know which one it is, if you can remember it, you just circle that one, or you just write it down.
So I ask a question, she wants choices in front of her to pick from. This would continue the whole life. And then I tested this with other people. People want choices.
I'm sorry I keep pausing it, but It's quite interesting. I do wonder. He said he tested it out with people. Did he test it out with his friends? And it makes me think about my own situation. I generally ask, where you want to go eat, and usually with the friends I'm around, because we're so poor, there's no doubt on where we're going to go. It's going to be the cheapest, not even a restaurant, it's fast food joints. So like McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, Wendy's, or whatever. And that's the fancy places for us. Like when you get lazy.
And I realized maybe it's hard to just think originally and come up with a fresh thought that the person who's offering the question hadn't thought up yet. Because I think somehow in our society we're hell-bent on the answer. The right answer. Because when it's the right answer, it's the right answer. And when it's the wrong answer, it's not the right answer. Consider this following example. Imagine you have a spelling bee.
Oh, it's terrible at that.
This is contrived, but it makes the point. There's a spelling bee, and you have to spell the word cat.
C-A-T. Cat.
Okay. So one student spells it C-A-T. Person got it right. The next person spells it K-A-T. That's wrong. You got that wrong. Okay? Third person spells it X-Q-W. You realize that is marked equally as wrong with the K-A-T? When you could argue that K-A-T is a better spelling for cat than C-A-T. Dictionaries know this because that's how they spell it phonetically. And so we've built a system for ourselves where there is an answer and everything else is not the answer, even when some answers are better than others.
I mean, I get it, but you can't say when you're looking for precision, you don't want close enough. Kind of like, how many dosage do you want? About maybe 10,000 milligrams of this medicine. It's like, it's not 100, but it's close enough. And I get what he's saying. I don't think spelling is necessarily the right example to put out there, because when you're going to spell cat, you want to make sure it's spelled correctly, because if you're writing down a drug and there are some drugs that are closely spelled together, you do not want to misspell that. Not at all.
So our brains are absent the wiring capable of coming up with an original thought, or thought not previously considered, or thought between the ideas that are already laid on the table. What we're not valuing is knowledge as process, rather than knowledge as an answer. In another example, a little contrived, but it brings the point home even a little more strongly. If you're an employer and two candidates come up looking for a job, and this is, again, a contrived example, and you're interviewing the two candidates, and you say, as for part of this interview, I just want to ask you, what's the height of the spire on this building that we're in? And the candidate says, I was an architect. I've majored in architecture for a while, and I memorized the heights of all the buildings on campus. I know. The height of that spire is 150 feet. In fact, 155 feet tall.
I wonder if the next one's going to say, let's step outside. Based on the time of day, the shadow that's being cast down by the sun, let's measure about it's 25 feet shadow, and based on the time, it's about 154.9 feet. I wonder if that's going to be the question, because that'd be quite good. I mean, memorizing things is one thing, but knowing how to answer the question better than just memorizing. Basically using the formula to get an answer.
Okay, turns out that's the right answer. That's the right answer. And the person came up with it in seconds. That person goes away, the next candidate walks in. Do you know the height of the spire on this building? The candidate says, no, but I'll be right back. Person runs outside, measures the length of the shadow of that spire on the ground, measures the length of his or her own shadow, ratios the height to the shadows, comes up with a number.
Well, close. I thought maybe based on the time you can get the shadow, but you'll also have to know your longitude and latitude as well, because that will make a big difference in your shadows.
Runs back inside. It's about 150 feet. Who are you going to hire?
It depends. I know he's not going to say this, but if you want someone with very good memory who can memorize a lot of things, obviously probably the first person. But if you want someone who can solve problems, who doesn't necessarily remember, both of them have good memory. The first person may be able to do that exact same thing, but because that first person remembers how tall that specific building was, just can answer right away. But if you were to ask him whoever the first person is, if you ask that person the questions, hey, how tall is the next building over? And he goes, give me 1 second. Goes back down, does the same measurement, comes back up, is this amount of feet. While her may have read about how tall this building is, but didn't remember, but remembers the formula. I don't know, they're about the same at that point, but honestly, I get what he's saying. You definitely want someone who can, again, both of them remember. They have this thing memorized. One had the height of the building memorized, and the other person had the formula memorized and can do the calculation. That doesn't necessarily take away from the first person, although in this example, he's going to show it as that. But what if the first person also knows that formula and can do the same formulation? Then that's the, I get what he's trying to say. Basically, you want someone who can figure out solutions to problems, or at least know the formula, what it seems like.
I'm hiring the person who figured it out, even though it took that person longer, even though the person's answer is not as precise. I'm hiring that person because that person knows how to use the mind in a way not previously engaged. You realize when you know how to think, it empowers you far beyond those who know only what to think.
But he is absolutely right, though. And it seems, I don't know how true this is, but a lot of people don't know how to think for themselves, don't know how to use their experiences necessarily to come up with a good solution. And also, this being the more important, I believe, even though I haven't thought about this, is the fact that they use their bias experiences and not necessarily being open-minded to other potential experiences that could conflict with their own experiences. So that's why I always try to be open. I always try to listen to all points of views, and then once I understand it, I can rebuttal or destroy, whatever you want to call it. And that's the reason why I really like that one video that I reacted to where God, I can't remember what it is, the different philosophies in Hinduism, where whenever they come and debate each other, they have to understand the opposing point of views before they attack it. And that great example with the non-duality versus duality, Swami, I'm sorry, I can't remember his full name, but Swami said, non-duality was having a debate against duality, and they made sure that the duality understood their point of views, and the duality person was like, you this and this and this and this, and the non-duality is like, yeah, you got it. You understand our point of view. And then he made his counter arguments for it. That is very much lacking, very much lacking. Again, and this is the reason why I wanted to read up on religious stuff, because again, I cannot I cannot make very good arguments against religion without knowing their books. And that, again, I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but there are people who push their religion so much so that I want to fight back against it and ask and try to understand why they're so adamant about their beliefs to the point of being kind of oh my gosh, basically in kind of fighty a little bit, not necessarily physical, but they like, this is right, you must follow this is the only way to do it, kind of deal. So, but I never really got into it. Even though I did want to read it and kind of put logic to the holy books and stuff. But anyways, I'm going way too deep into this. Anyways, that's my reaction to Neil deGrasse Tyson on knowledge versus thinking. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.